Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I want to ask a straight question. Why is Kenya Kwanza government returning Mau evictees back to the forest? The people that were evicted from Mau on the 2012, from the time of the Grand Coalition government, when Raila Odinga was a prime minister, one of the things that costed Raila Odinga relationship with bit of people who had stayed in the forest. And I am saying this in the light of latest Rigathi Gachagwa's statement in Baringo, saying that people, in fact, he was not saying that people should be, he was actually saying that they've already given orders. They're only waiting for the minister to come, mwenye according to him si mjinga, so that they can implement the shamba system, where people will be allowed to go to the forest and get forest space and do farming. Then miti zikishakuwa juu, zikishakuwa mrefu, takatakata. I listened to that and I think it was so unfortunate that one, from the way the deputy president speaks, he actually speaks as if he's the president, number one. And I don't know, because was that even platform, I don't know how the issue of that forest thing even had to come, because most people who are in Baringo are pastoralist communities. So to what extent that was coming is totally different. Number two, I think Rigathi Gachagua should speak in reference to the president, William Ruto. Someone around him should do an induction. People should be taken through an induction so that he takes his space as deputy president and let the president talk. This administration is the administration of President William Ruto. It's not their government. They are actually exercising donated power. And so you speak more referring to William Ruto, but that was just a by the way. Now, when I listened to that statement talking about allowing people to go back to the forest, then I asked a question. Which forest? Which forest? And 2 hours after the information, after that speech in Baringo, Ledama Olekina was up in arms, saying that, look here, we must preserve Mau, and no one is going back to Mau. I'm delving there because to people who were evicted in from Mau Forest, when they listen to the deputy president talking about that plan, there are people who still believe that legitimately they own land in Mau and they were evicted without compensation. Some families are demanding compensation to date. So when they hear there is a window of people going back to farm in the forest, what do they think? What do they think? They might actually grab that opportunity to go back to Mau. And from where? This to me looks more of a political strategy. It's a populist strategy to please the voters. I don't know to what extent. And I want to face this with a lot of soberness and objectiveness. First, by saying that one thing you must credit William Ruto and the team is that they are taking they're trying to look for different solutions that can help this country. The shamba system was a system that was ever used, and it was here until the different stakeholders realized that plan was being abused by people who now are encroaching the forest, who are now settling there, and doing other activities. There was charcoal burning and sawmilling, and so there was a lot. There was a lot of illicit activities in the forest, and that is why it was suspended. But I think the Forest Conservation Act of 2016 is also talking about public participation before some of these policies are made. What I'm simply saying, and this is what is worrying, while William Ruto might sit down with the strategists, and the strategists are trying to look for different solutions, which we highly appreciate, but I think they should be done with the legal. It should be done in a more organized manner, because as we talk, we've not formed the cabinet. Maybe they have a kitchen cabinet they're discussing behind the scene, but the government has not yet taken its shape. We still don't know who is heading where. But of course, the deputy is out just throwing orders and here and there. And I want to face this by saying that William Ruto team, when some of these decisions are made, they must be so keen into it, because let's just face the first session we're looking at. But before that, kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and also like our video. The rationale by Rigathi Gachagua while he was speaking about taking people to go and do farming in the forest is, one, it's going to boost food security. And it takes us back to their plan to reduce the cost of living or the price of hunger by increasing produce. So, I just want to challenge this by saying, maybe I'm not privy. I might be speaking from a point of privilege or a point of less knowledge. But do you think that if we allow people to go back to the forest to do farming, are they not going to do subsistence farming? Just household farming? Or do we expect people to go back and do farming and to till large hectares there? Something that can be harvested and at least some 5% or 10% can be injected in our grain supply chain. Can whatever the produce will get from the forest be injected in our grain supply chain, so that we account and say, okay, from this move, we've got 5% or 10% in our grain supply chain? Is it? My answer is no, because honestly, this cannot solve food security for the whole country. It does not add. It's a drop in the ocean. Number one, because that farming in its nature, it's mixed farming. It's mixed farming. Unapanda katikati ya mimea. That is number one. So there is no way you can maximize. There's no way you can maximize on the space. But of course, unless, number two, for someone to do farming, there is a very high temptation of encroachment. So that kama hii mti ndio inanishinda mimi nataka kulima hapa, wataenda hapo walime. And implementation there is no blueprint on that implementation. So, and again, I speak from a point, and on this one I'm speaking from a point of knowledge. The issue of food security in this country has never been about the land. The factors that affect food production at the level is not about the farmland. Maybe we have the farmland, but imports are prioritized at the expense of the local farmers, and so local farmers are sometimes demotivated. There is also high cost of the inputs, and William Ruto acknowledged this at one point when they introduced the controversial fertilizer subsidy. There is climate change and poor agricultural practices and primitive technologies. So all this brought together, farmers sometimes, there are many that have withdrew, that have left the food production bit on maize production because maize farming because they are not seeing an income, convincing income from our grain supply chain. So we might be solving farmland. We are giving people farmland. And I'm telling you that it might not be it. That is the first question. Number two, which is what many people have been asking, is what is the legislative framework or policy to institutionalize the Shamba system? This must be institutionalized because we must get a framework on, for example, when it becomes like an order, or whether it's a policy or it's legislated and it's passed as a bill or somehow, then it will not only apply to one area, one forest, like now. Boni Forest is there. There are many other areas. And so, what is the framework of going there, even the farmland? Like, how are we going to take it? And what is worrying is, from my point of bearing, there are people that already have land, title deeds of some forest lands. We are simply giving ownership and activating the dead title deeds. The people who still have land. So if we are to take people, how are they going? Like even people that were evicted from Mau. So how are they going back? Is there a limit to how many hectares one person, one family or person can have? Is there a legislative framework or a policy on the kind of crop farming that will be done in each forest? Because each different forests there are different types of forest. There is the tropical forest. There is the others. So for the ecosystem to go to be in conformity with for the farming system to be in conformity with the ecosystem of the forest, so that even that Shamba system is maximized, what do we have? Have we done enough? And this is a recipe for human conflict. In fact, in terms of legislation, it is this legislation that is going to make sure that there is no human or animal settlement. When Gachagua was speaking in Baringo, he was addressing pastoralist communities. So they might not stay there, but they might take the animals in the forest and it is there. So there is a lot of loose ends as to this, and that's why I feel that this is one thing that you cannot implement by an executive order. This is one that requires public participation. It goes through legislation and different stakeholders, so that when a policy document comes to give that framework, it is a collective responsibility of all the players that we agreed that that is going to work. Even though many people have seen are negative about it, it is possible, but something needs to be done different, the way it was done previously. Something needs to be done, and if public participation is done, it can work out. I only have a challenge. This policy must also be looking at other areas where we cannot introduce, like Boni Forest. We know that the enemies of the country were actually, some of them at one point, there was a blame and there were reports that were coming that some of them were staying in the Boni Forest. So if we allow people to go to the forest, are we? And there is also banditry in some areas. Some of these forests have become places for human cover, illicit human cover. So the illicit human cover is it. So if you take people there, we are going to produce also breeding grounds for those illicit characters to get their way and cover themselves with the green leaves. So this is not as easy. I don't think it should be handled as casual as how the deputy president is looking at it. Ladies and gentlemen, just get to our comment section and tell us what you think. From my end, the target here is Mau. The target here is Mau. It may be the government is trying to revisit what was done 10 years ago. Political convenience. Of course, the Maasais are going to protest. They're already protesting. But again, someone also want to please the voters. Let's not circumvent and cover this and lie that this is about food production and reducing the cost of living. I think it's miles apart. This has to be addressed. If we really want to help, this has to be addressed with structures, legislative frameworks, and how it's going to be implemented. That is it.